In this video, we're going to look at dissected kidney. So this is a pig kidney. This is the outer surface. So the kidneys are protected by a membrane that is called the renal capsule. And outside of the renal capsule, the kidneys have a fat layer that is called the perirenal fat. And outside of this perirenal fat, we have another membrane that protects the kidneys that are called the renal fascia, and also helps to keep the kidneys into their place, which in the case of humans will be around the level of L1 to L3 or so. And the kidneys, they have a pinto bean shape like this, and they have the convexity facing laterally while the concavity faces medially. And if you make a mid-sagittal section, you will be able to see the internal structures. So the two major regions of the internal structures will be the renal cortex, which will be the one close to the capsule, which is all this, and then this medial portion that is called the renal medulla. And then internally to the renal medulla, we have the hilum, which is a constriction in the medial view of the kidneys. So within the cortex, we have the nephrons, which are the structure and functional units of the kidneys, and we have two different types of nephrons. So we have the cortical nephrons, and then we have the juxtamedullary nephrons. The cortical nephrons are the ones that are closer to the capsule, and then the juxtamedullary are close to the medulla. Juxta means near, and then medullary means that they are near to the medulla. Now within the medulla, we have triangular shaped structures, which are the renal pyramids, and the base of the pyramids faces towards the capsule, while the apex of the pyramids faces towards the hilum. Now in between the pyramids, we have these vertical or kind of cylindrical structures that we call the renal columns. And within the renal columns, we have blood vessels running like the interlover artery, interlover vein. We have lymphatics and nerves that are going to provide either provide blood supply into the cortex or drain the blood supply into the cortex and then drain some of the lymphatic fluid. And within the pyramids, we have the part of the nephrons that are called the collecting ducts. So that's where the urine is drained, and also we have the part of the nephrons that we call the loops of Henle. So we produce basically and concentrate urine within the medulla. Now for the Hyalumis structures, so we have in this side the renal artery, which is this. This will be the ureter, and this one in here will be the renal vein. This specimen, which is a pig kidney, was injected with latex, with color latex, so you can see the different structures. So in blue color will be the veins, in yellow color will be representing the urine, and then in red color will be representing the arterial blood. And in order for them, when they were injecting this specimen to retain the latex within the kidneys, they had to tie this renal artery, the vein, and the ureter with this cord. And then the way for us to tell what structure is which is just by looking at the thickness of the structure, and also by looking at the diameter, if it's large, if it's small, or if it's round, and if it's irregular. So, and according to the texture of the structure, So if the wall of the structure is very resistant, and if the lumen or the diameter it is small and it's rounded, it will be the artery. If the lumen it's irregular and it's large and the wall is soft, that will be the vein. And then if the diameter is very large and the lumen it's round and then the wall is soft, that will be the ureter. And actually you can tell also that this is the ureter because the ureter is the tube that brings the urine from the kidneys into the urinary bladder, and this is stained with yellow. So there is no doubt this is the largest of all the lumens or diameter, the one for the ureter. Now for the blood supply of the kidneys, it comes from the aorta. So the aorta sends these lateral branches that are called the renal arteries, and then the renal artery enters into the hilum, and then once it enters into the hilum, it makes 2 to 3 segmental arteries within the hilum. And then these 2 to 3 segmentals go deep, penetrate, enters into the columns, and now inside the columns are going to be called the interlobar arteries. And then the interlobar arteries will follow the apex of the pyramids. They make like a little turn, not a complete U-turn, but they make a little turn towards the base of the pyramid, and then they will be called arcuate. And then the arcuate are going to form branches that goes radially toward the cortex that are going to be called the cortical radiate. And then from the cortical radiate, you have a tiny branch that is called the afferent arteriole or arriving arteriole, that inside the nephron, the renal corpuscle, is going to form a net of capillaries that we know as the glomerulus. And then the glomerulus is going to empty its blood into the efferent arteriole or exiting arteriole. And then from there, the blood will go into the peritubular capillaries, and then from the peritubular capillaries will go into the cortical radiate veins that are the majority that you can see here in blue color, that goes towards the base of the pyramid. So this will be the cortical radiate, and then the cortical radiate will drain into the arcuate, and then the arcuate will drain into the interlobar veins, which are inside the columns. And then from the interlobars, they will drain into the renal vein. There is no segmental veins in the kidneys, just segmental arteries. So from the arcuate into the interlobar, and then into the renal vein, and then the renal vein will drain into the inferior vena cava, and then you return the blood supply into the circulation. And this is all for the kidney specimen.